So tonight's webinar is Diversifying Your Transcript and Resume. So before we really formally get started, just a couple of housekeeping rules for you. We're looking at running this webinar for about 45 minutes or so. We have a ton of really great content for you and a ton of valuable insights from our panelists here today, our admissions experts. So we're running that for 45 minutes, hopefully, but we will leave some time for question and answers as well. So throughout the presentation, we encourage you to take notes. We encourage you to even drop questions that you may have that we'll get back to at the end of the presentation, whether that's using the chat function or the Q&A function as well. I get this question a lot. These webinars are recorded and you will receive a recording in your inbox within 2 business days. So I'm super excited to get started for you. A little bit of an agenda. Oh, perfect. So yes, a little bit of an agenda. So we'll talk about the significance of your resume and transcript. We'll speak about what colleges are looking for, how to write an impactful resume, how to find new opportunities for growth, showcasing your academic excellence, any sort of additional tips, and of course that question and answer period that we did talk about. Before I send it over to our wonderful panelists to introduce themselves, I'd love to introduce you to our company, Quad Education. Whether you know us or not, I want to take just a minute, I promise. So what is Quad Education? We're a college application consulting firm. Our programs are built to maximize your chances of college acceptances. Our team of 150 plus experts have a long-standing track record of getting students accepted at top universities across the country. Every college counselor we work with specializes in strategic positioning to show admissions committees how you'd become a stellar addition to any sort of incoming class. We always begin to learn more about you. So your background, your family, your college preferences, your passions, and so much more. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to help us personalize your college admissions counseling experience and sort of helps us build a compelling applicant persona to share with your top schools. We definitely make sure that it's catered to you. We start supporting students as young as 6th grade, believe it or not, to ensure they're building a competitive and standout profile and support students across the entire application lifecycle. So from school selection and narrative building to interview prep to merit scholarships to even a full application review panel and so much more. The admissions counselors that are joining today that I'll pass off to in a moment are part of our expansive team of experts that support students in reaching their goals and attending their dream school. If you're interested in exploring these options and more about what a one-on-one college admissions counseling program looks like, you will receive that email that I talked about after this webinar that will include a link to schedule a free consultation. And that really gives you an opportunity to sit down with one of our counselors and go through any sort of questions, personalized questions and personalized experiences you may have. With that being said, I'd love to pass it off to Crystal, Jesse. I'll leave it up to you to who starts off this wonderful webinar.
Super. Thank you so much, Andrea. Everyone, hello. My name is Crystal Kapler, and I'm a college admissions counselor with Quad Education. I live here in Colorado, and I've coached and counseled and worked with top college students who've successfully navigated and accepted prestigious scholarships, including Fulbright, Marshall, Rhodes, etc. I earned my bachelor's degree in corporate finance and leadership, and then I was able to complete my master's of economics coursework, all paid for by scholarships. I currently chair the National Coca-Cola Scholarship Board and help run our Coca-Cola Scholars Coaching Program. And before this, I worked for the Bachelor Foundation, which is a private family foundation that awards full ride merit scholarships to 50 Colorado high school seniors. And I also spearheaded alumni engagement. So I'm really familiar with the college process all the way from preparing and getting ready to apply through the undergraduate years into your postgraduate studies and beyond. I'm super passionate about helping students tell their own unique stories, and I really enjoy using my background in finances to help make college as accessible as possible.
Hi, everyone. My name's Jesse. I went to undergrad to major in business administration at Emory University, where I was a writing tutor, a writing center consultant, where I helped people write their application essays, revise their resumes, and streamline their applications for grad school and undergrad as well. I went on to get my law degree and my MBA at USC, where I was also a writing center consultant for the USC Writing Center. And I helped a couple individuals definitely specifically attain Fulbright scholarships, but I was very much hands-on with their application essays for higher education. And currently I am a practicing attorney specializing in medical malpractice in Long Island, New York. But certainly I have 8 years of experience with helping people craft the perfect application essay, and I'm excited to assist in however way I can. I know how stressful this process can be, and I'm ready to give it everything I've got to help you guys along.
Awesome. And feel welcome to ask questions in the chat as they arise, but know that we'll have a Q&A session at the end to make sure that everyone leaves feeling really prepared with all the information you have to get started.
Awesome. So the first slide is your college application. Of course, your resume is going to be the most important way to showcase everything in a quick and easily digestible way. It's definitely an outline of your strengths and abilities. It's sort of like your first impression to the admissions officer who's evaluating your application, because it's just it's like a cheat sheet of who you are and what you've done so far. And in addition to college applications, it's also important for scholarship applications, for job and internship applications. This is a very versatile piece of paper that will follow you throughout your career. And it's something that you'll add on to as you gain more experience over the years. So this document is definitely going to be sort of your foundational document that you'll continue to build upon over the years. It enables prospective employers to evaluate your skills, accomplishments, and suitability for whatever position it is that you will eventually apply for. So having a resume prepared for a college interview especially is good for demonstrating your enthusiasm and your match for the school.
Awesome. Such good information, Jesse. So what are colleges really looking for? It's really important to go to the specific institution that you're applying for and look at their mission, their vision, their core values, and use those as guiding principles as you can speak to the college's culture and their academic priorities as well. Every college is different, and while it might seem like they're all looking to educate young minds, which they are, they all have their unique flair, and they want to know that you truly are applying to them and are very specific and intentional about your application. So align your application with the college's mission, vision, and values, and then use that by showcasing your own values and how your aspirations resonate with theirs. Colleges tend to look for students who are showcasing their academic excellence, who are pursuing diverse experiences, who show leadership capabilities and the ability to take it one step further and really do more with all the extracurriculars that they're involved in. And they also want to see that students and prospective students are getting involved with their communities, not just their own friend group, but their student school community, as well as their larger local communities. So your resume should highlight all these qualities and more, and we'll delve deeper into that in the next session.
Awesome. So how to write an impactful resume. So you're probably thinking to yourself, the application is a little bit confusing because you've already given sort of a significant amount of information already in the Common App. In addition to these bullet points that are listed on this slide, I would say that the resume, in order to really give it your application that extra spark to bring it to life, you're going to want to utilize some depth. So, for example, not just sort of saying you attended this, or you met with this person, or you did this task. Add some the so what factors, what I would like to call it, in the sense that you want to say you did such and such a task in furtherance of the mission of whatever group that you are working for, or you did something that helped lead to a something % increase in, whether it's in retail, for example, customer satisfaction, or if it's in sales, you've led to a significant number of sales that eventually led to a greater amount of profit for whatever volunteer work you did, for example. You want to add some sort of more concrete evidence that gives more supportive information to the information you provided so far, because yes, you can list your extracurriculars, your work experience, and your competencies and your Common App, but what makes your resume most important is adding sort of like the supplemental information that adds the personality to it. And I think those concrete items are going to be what makes the resume more impactful. So it gets the person reading it to think, okay, so this person isn't just like a taskmaster and they do X, Y, or Z things. They did these things in furtherance of a broader mission or a broader goal that provided value to whatever organization or whatever group it is that they were working for.
Jesse's exactly right. Adding those value adds and telling the story of what you did while you were participating in an activity is huge. And you can do that really well by starting with some action verbs that really speak to the doing of what was happening for a particular time in your life. So there's a couple stages for writing an impactful resume. The first is brainstorming, and no matter where you're at in your educational and vocational careers, it's really good to keep a long list of everything that you've done. So be sure to write down program titles, mentors that you had and their contact info, dates that you were involved in a particular activity, the hours that you spent, whether it's hours per week or hours per year that you spent on a given activity. And scientific fields usually refer to this as a CV or curriculum vitae. I'm not in the science fields anymore, but I still keep a CV on hand because you want to have all the plethora of things that you've done in your life at a fingertips glance to be able to pull and cater your resume towards whatever you're applying for and make it the most relevant and useful information to provide to that application reader. So you'll pick and choose from those activities to sort out what's most relevant to the position or the college or the program or the scholarship to which you're applying. The next stage is formatting. So unless you're applying for a graphic design or marketing type of internship or something in a creative field, don't use crazy graphics or wild formatting and colors on your resume because the computer automated review systems can't read them. And so it shows up when these resumes are running through computer generated filters as blank, which is really not beneficial to you nor to the application reader. So do prioritize the most relevant and impressive and important components first. And you can do that because there's no one way to format a resume. So build it to your advantage. The third stage for a resume building is reviewing and proofing it. It is absolutely essential that your resume is free from errors and as perfect as can be. Have multiple people look over your resume, whether it's your parents, your friends, your family, your counselors, your quad counselor. Have a couple pairs of eyes on that because you want to make sure that is best representing who you are in the most polished way forward.
Awesome. Thank you. So The next is finding new opportunities for growth. If you're starting early and aiming to strengthen your candidacy as you prepare for college, there's a lot of proactive things you can take. I would say definitely embrace the opportunity to explore your interests and passions without hesitation at this time. It's important to challenge yourself to step out of your comfort zone and discover new avenues of growth. And that could include initiating a new project, for example, that reflects your interests. So for example, if you are really interested in science or something like that, and your school doesn't have, for example, a science fair team, you could sort of maybe go and speak with your science teacher and see if you can get a club started or something like that, an organization to get more involved and to get other students more involved as well who may have similar interests, just to show that initiative and show that you have that gumption and that self enterprising kind of personality that a lot of college admissions counselors are looking for. They want people who are go-getters and who are going to come to campus and create things that will be lasting and also change sort of, I mean, not to be dramatic, but like change the lives of other people in a way. I think to give other people opportunities that you may also want and to partake and share in that. I think that's really important as well. And this is also a time definitely to introspect, take time to understand your strengths and weaknesses, as this is like a self-awareness that will guide you in your academic and extracurricular journey. And then I would say seeking out volunteer opportunities is really important. Internships that resonate with your interests. And I would say once you've decided of course it's important to branch out and try new things. I'm not saying that when you apply for college, for example, you may apply for one major, but then once you get to campus, for example, and you take a few classes, you might just discover a whole other avenue of things. Like I, for example, wanted to be pre-med when I first went to undergrad, and then I switched to a business major after my first year. And so it really depends on, what your interests may lie in. But I would say in high school and in preparation for college, I would say definitely test the waters, do what you think is interesting and take classes that you find fascinating, but also have sort of like a backbone or a foundation in an area that you're really interested in and you've dived deep into, so that when you do construct your application, it's consistent and there's an overarching theme that shows, okay, this person has a particular interest in this area and they've done a lot of things in this area. And perhaps they've dabbled and experimented in other things to discover that that's their sort of primary interest. But this is an individual that will take the energy to dive deep and develop some kind of a deeper understanding of an area that they're passionate about. And that's not to say that you be tethered to that area once you go to college, for example, as I said before, but I just think it's important to experiment, yes, but also have a backbone of sort of an area that you are passionate about and diving deep and discovering how you can initiate projects, how you can develop internship experiences, how you can volunteer in sort of areas that relate to that sort of foundational kind of backbone of what your primary interest may be in high school.
That is such great information, Jesse. And when you spoke about themes, that reminds me of something I always tell my coaching students and my consulting students, is to look for that strong through line in your application.
Yeah, that's a good word for a through line.
Yeah, it's okay to try a bunch of different things and see what you like and see what you're passionate about. But an application is most strong when it has something that connects it throughout and it shows some depth for who you are as a person and what your interests are. So if it's one specific area, then take that area and expand it into volunteering in that area and working in that field and taking advanced courses in that field. That'll help you create a really nice overarching theme or through line.
Absolutely. All right, so showcasing your academic excellence. This is about, first of all, challenging yourself. Take challenging courses that ultimately interest you and now allow you to pursue higher level courses. So take on extracurriculars that will allow you to apply your knowledge. And it's also important to pursue your academic interests. It's essential for you to pursue courses that you're genuinely interested in, as we said before in the last slide, rather than take ones that you think you should take. Of course, if there's some courses that you want to take that are higher up and you have to take like the prerequisite for it, or whatever course that may be, then obviously you have to do that. But in general, it's important to like follow what you're passionate about, because at the end of the day, when you're really interested in the subject, it's not going to feel as heavy, especially if you have like a bunch of other courses. It's because those areas of knowledge that you're really interested in will be less tiresome and less exhausting, because it's not like you're fighting an uphill battle to remain engaged with the material. It's because you actually enjoy it and you like it. And that'll take some time to figure out, but you definitely, once you get the hang of it, I think you'll realize what you're really passionate about, and you'll continue to take those courses, and it'll flow a lot more easily. Take advanced classes. It's important to do that to demonstrate your academic capability. Consider taking some AP classes. Make sure to understand like how strike the balance between, I would say, like making sure that you can maximize your GPA, of course, because that's going to be important, obviously, while also taking as many APs as possible. But I wouldn't say take all the APs that you can possibly do. If you should do that if you're confident that you can excel in all of them. I would say that it's important to balance sort of your workload with your capabilities and with your all the other areas of your application, all the areas of your life that you are sort of having to juggle, and making sure that you're able to sustain that over a long period of time, because that's that's going to be really important in the long run, to being able to show that not only were you capable of taking these classes, but also capable of excelling in them as well. And obviously the last thing is making sure that you have a well-rounded course load. You don't want to have a course load that is all, in one particular subject. I don't know if the school would even allow that, but I would say that it's important to have electives for sure that align with what you're interested in, and have it in like a particular area, as we said about the theme of the application, but also making sure that you do show the admissions people and yourself as well that you can, you've experimented and looked at a broader range of subjects, so that you can show that you are, very versatile in your knowledge, and you're open to new experiences, because that curiosity factor is something that is really valued, I would say, in the admissions community.
I love that you mentioned the curiosity factor, because that's something I automatically look for when I'm reviewing scholarship applications, is that curiosity, that sense of a spark of excitement. And you can tell when a student is really diving into something and pouring their heart into it, and inclined to essentially go down the metaphorical rabbit hole and learn more and more in an area. And you can't choose the right area to go down that lovely rabbit hole without experiencing all there is out there. There are so many jobs and majors and career paths today that didn't exist 5, 10, 15 years ago. So give yourself the time and space to figure out what gives you that sense of curiosity, and then go for that, whatever excites you. So, some final thoughts. Provide details in your resume that evoke some emotions or use some imagery. You can use a lot of great creative writing, and we talked about those powerful adjectives and powerful verbs to start your sentences with in your resume, but also keep it short and sweet. One page is absolutely the standard. There's no reason as a high school student or even a college student that you should have a resume that's longer than one page. The only times where it is beneficial and even common practice within the world to use a longer resume is in more of the scientific fields, where you have a lot of publications and a lot of citations to be putting into your resume. But those are usually crafted in a different means on a second page. For today's purpose, short and sweet, one page, the most important details. I would say include additional information. Jesse talked about including those important details, like the value that you brought to an organization while you were there that contributed to its mission. Also, making sure that you have details such as number of people helped or number of hours served or some really great metrics to show that you did more than just show up and check a box. And with that in mind, it is never okay to fabricate your resume. This is a document that is essentially a paper version of who you are, and you want that to be true and genuine, and for it to build trust upon the resume reader to elicit feelings of who you are as a person. Now, I would argue that it's important to write with certainty. Use those active voice words over passive voice words so that it feels like something you're doing in the present and you're actively engaged in or participating in. And if it is something that happened in the past or was an activity that happened freshman year that didn't continue, that's okay. But still use words that convey this sense of urgency. And then finally, I would say demonstrate your strengths and your passions. You can play with your resume by prioritizing what is most important and really take this opportunity to highlight those things that make you the standout person that you are. All right. And with that, we'll go ahead and look to the chat for any questions that you might have for Jesse, myself, or Andrea.
Amazing. So, you know what? Let's get into the Q&A box here. Just a reminder, I saw this question come up a few times here. Yes, this webinar is being recorded, and yes, you will receive a link to rewatch, and you can rewatch it as many times as you like. We encourage you to do so. Share with your friends, your family, your network, others in your community that you think would find some value in it. So let's get back to some of these questions. So Daniel Gibson asks, should we keep alternative versions of tailored resumes to send to different colleges? By tailored, I mean written around the culture and mission of X college.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that I've done and I coach my students to do is have your CV, of course, your document that has all the potential activities and engagement opportunities that you've done, but then save files for every single thing that you apply to. And when you're sending out your resume, you want it to be titled your first name, your last name, resume. That's it, so that it comes out across as a nice, clean document and the true version of you. But then go ahead and on your computer, save a second version of that as, Crystal Kapler, Harvard resume, Crystal Kapler, Stanford resume, your first and your last name, and then the resume version to which you used it to apply. And where this is super helpful is that should you get called back for an interview at one of these schools or honors programs or scholarships, you can go ahead and go back to the exact application materials that you submitted, not just the application and the essays, but also the resume that you sent them. And you know exactly what information that you provided them so that you have that top of mind when you're going into an interview. Great question.
Yes, these questions are fantastic. Let's keep going. If you're taking advanced classes in your field and in some context implies that you're taking third, fourth year dual enrollment courses, is it better to take a more well-rounded schedule with different subfields or to try to concentrate in what you anticipate doing?
What do you mean in some context implies that you're taking third, fourth year?
Yeah, so that question comes in from Daniel. Daniel's definitely If you can maybe rephrase that question, and we'll try our best to get to it on today's webinar.
I think it also depends on like what major you're applying to and what program you're applying to. Like, I would say if you're applying to, for example, like an accelerated pre-med program, I would, my intuition is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I just think that that would be probably the route you would want to take is more towards the specialty, as opposed to more well-rounded schedule, which would be more applicable and more appropriate for if you were applying for a liberal arts program, for example. But it would really depend on the context of, we would have to evaluate your entire application and also what schools you're interested in applying to. So I feel like that's a more pointed question that would be more appropriate for a one-on-one.
Absolutely. And those one-on-ones are free. It's complimentary to our audience. We definitely encourage you to reach out if you have any specific questions such as that. And I'm sorry, Crystal, I cut you off.
It's okay. I would just add to that, to use the colleges that you're interested in, even if it's a broad brushstroke, choose a college and look at the application requirements and the undergraduate requirements for that college and that specific program that you're interested, because they might have some prerequisites of some higher level classes that you can take at the high school level. And that will help guide what schedule you choose.
Fantastic. Let's keep the ball rolling. I see a lot of questions in this chat, and we're just trying to be mindful of. This one's a great question. Do you think engagement within schools, such as class president, club leaders, and other positions, are valuable to colleges?
Yeah.
Jesse, would you like to take that?
Sure. Yeah, I think that they're definitely important. I don't think that they're going to. I wouldn't say that the president, you're not going to get into the college. Like, I wouldn't go as far as that. I just think that that's a definitely, as we said before in the slides, like, it shows that you're taking initiative. It shows that you're engaged with the community. It shows that you have a passion for whatever club or program it is that you became a leader in. But I would say that it doesn't have to be like the president or the captain or like the concert master. I would say even if you're the VP or like the treasurer or of whatever organization, as long as you're involved and you aren't just sort of like a layperson that kind of just attended one event, and you're actually engaged and you can demonstrate that in some way in your resume, then that's definitely something that will add value. I will say that your resume is obviously going to be one page. You're going to want, if you have a ton of memberships to like a ton of clubs, I think that would be, again, another discussion we would have one-on-one to discuss which ones you want to include or highlight more than others. So I would say that leadership is definitely more important than just simply membership, but having some position of sort of like higher in the executive kind of role in any organization is going to, that involves you having to go a step further in guiding or sort of managing a larger group of people. I would say that that definitely is going to be a plus in your resume. But again, I want to caution people who think that sort of having like 10 leadership roles is like going to make up for, if you're too involved in like a ton of extracurriculars, right? And that takes away from your ability to perform well in your classes, or that like drastically lowers your GPA, for example. I would say that that's not a good trade-off to have. It's important to have, you know, a few leadership positions is good. Even one is good, great, even. But making sure that that's something that you're really passionate about and it shows initiative, and that's going to be a plus in your resume, but don't do it at the expense of other areas of your application.
Several really good points in there, Jesse. I would add to that when I'm reviewing scholarship applications in particular, I look for depth and growth in given areas. So when we speak about that through line, having interests and passions that cover multiple aspects of how you can be involved, whether it's volunteerism or work or internships, that sort of thing. I also look for students who have gotten into a club or an organization as a member, say as a freshman, and then they've grown in their leadership roles over the 4 years, if that's something they choose to stick with for a given activity. So you might be a member as a freshman, and then a treasurer as a sophomore, and a vice president as a junior, and a president as a senior. That growth in leadership shows that you're taking on more responsibilities and that you're invested in the organization and really giving back in a meaningful way. And that really speaks highly to a student's ability to contribute to their community.
Fantastic. So somebody asked, I apologize, I just lost the actual question. Where can we find an example of the format of the Common App? So within the actual chat itself, I linked a really great resource that actually comes from our website, Full Transparency. There gives you a really solid understanding of what the Common App actually is. So we'll go, it goes over that. It goes over how many essays are required, what colleges accept the Common App, and I highly recommend you take a read to learn sort of the answers to some of these Common App questions. And full transparency, we actually have a Common App webinar coming up. I apologize, I don't know what month it is exactly, but I recommend you stay tuned to our website or subscribe to our newsletter. That way you won't miss it. So yes, we have a ton of resources. And I actually see a ton of questions in here about AP exams. Again, we have an AP exam related webinar coming up as well. So I love these questions.
There's one actually in particular I was intrigued by Christina, who said, should summer pre-college courses in your field be included in your extracurricular section of your resume? Definitely. I actually attended a pre-college program at the school that I eventually went to. So, then I became an RA for that same program as a junior in college. So I love pre-college programs, especially the one I went to with Emory's. It was, I'm biased, but I really enjoyed it. You get the whole experience of the college and the city. And I wrote about it in my supplemental essay. You don't have to do that, but definitely at least add it to your resume. And if you interview with anyone at the school that you did the pre-college program that you're applying to, I would definitely bring that up, because it shows, again, that initiative and that step forward. And people, colleges, and just this is like human nature in general, people love to know that they're special in a way, right? And when you write your application or you engage with them in the admissions process, you want to show them that you, especially if it's your top choice school, you want to show them that you have that specific an explicit interest in their program, in their school. It's not just, of course you did apply to a bunch of other schools, but this is the school that you want to go to. And if that's the case, if they have a pre-college program, I would encourage you to do it. And I think that program for me was really life-changing, and I enjoyed it a lot.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
I see a great question from Janice Jens here. Is it better to leave off some items to have room to give more detail on the most or important items? Absolutely. I know everything is a trade-off, and being limited on space, you do want to make sure that the most important things are highlighted and given the priority they deserve. So for example, if you were a member in 5 different clubs, but you dug really deep, and for 4 years throughout high school, you're very involved in 2 or 3 other things, then give some more weight, visual weight, and weight in terms of number of lines on the page allocated to those activities to which you are really involved and very committed.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think, like, chronologically speaking, like even in a resume that eventually you'll use for your employment, for example, you don't want to list things that you did unless they're like extremely important or pertinent to your position. And I think that's on a specific case-by-case scenario. But I would say if you did something like 10 years ago, or when you were in like middle school, just like don't include that if it's not pertinent to what you do now. Of course, it's going to be different if you've done it for like several years into high school. If it's like a job or something like that, if that's significant, I would definitely include it, but consider the weight of it. consider the recency factor and consider the pertinence in terms of like how relevant is it to your application theme and overall how important is it to you and your academic interests and your extracurricular interests for that matter. But definitely consider how recent it is as well. I think that's an important factor to consider.
Awesome. So I think we have time for a couple more questions in here. Maybe one more, two more. Okay.
I see one from Raquel. Is honor roll recognition, high honor roll recognition worthy of noting in the resume? This is a really interesting one because I've heard some people go both ways on this. What I will say is that things like honor roll recognition will be really self-evident if your GPA is high enough. So if you've got a 4.0 or above a 4.0, if you're on a 4-point system with some AP classes or IB classes, then honor roll's pretty well expected that you're in that class. But if you have space on a given line, you have, your title of your high school, then comma, your GPA, comma, honor roll, that's okay because it's not taking away from something else that you could have on your resume by taking a whole line to itself. There are other things that people put on a resume that are maybe less meaningful. For example, National Honor Society has come to mean a lot less than it used to, unless you're in a leadership role and you've really invested the time and energy into that organization. But so many good students, so many great students are part of things like the National Honor Society that it has sort of become less of a meaningful mark of a student's success.
Okay. Okay, this is an interesting one. Is foreign travel, especially student exchange program, even if only 2 weeks, important to mention? So essentially what Christina is asking us is a 2-week summer exchange program, and if that's something that would be considered valid to put on a resume, and if that holds any sort of weight.
Jesse, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. Personally, I would say it depends on what else you're looking to put in your resume and the weight of it relative to other activities and internships and jobs that you've had. So a 2-week experience is not that meaningfully relevant if it's just you show up and you travel the globe for a bit. It's wonderful that you had the opportunity to do some foreign travel. And I think you can speak to that in some of your essays to say, you really gained a greater world's perspective and now identify with some different cultures or understand some different cultures better than you used to. But I would not say that I would give it a lot of weight on a resume per se. If it's something that you're really passionate about, travel or foreign affairs or some other cultures, something like that, the best place I would advise you to put it is at the very bottom. Sometimes students will have a spare line to just provide some details of other things that they love and are passionate about. So for instance, I have a one line at the bottom, if and only if there's space, to tell the reviewer that you're interested in things like gardening and sailing and jazz music and foreign travel. Could be a place to add that without taking up a whole block of detail on your resume.
Fantastic. That really. Oh, okay. So I have a couple of questions in here. So I see a ton of questions in the chat. So you know what? We have time for one more, and I'd love to answer Jenny's question. So Jenny asks, my daughter's only going into 8th grade next year, but she's already accomplishing some fun things. Congratulations, Jenny and Jenny's daughter. That's fantastic. I'm just wondering if it really doesn't matter until she is actually in high school.
No, actually, this sort of touches on what Jesse mentioned a little bit ago, is that if there's some momentum and some energy behind those things that Jenny is engaged in now, and she pursues either something similar or these same things at a higher level into high school, that longevity is a wonderful thing to showcase because it shows that early curiosity, that early spark, and then takes it into a nice through line. If it's something that's sort of a one-off experience and she's doing really well right now, I would just encourage her to keep that same sense of curiosity and passion and enthusiasm for learning and experiencing new things. And that will gradually and naturally develop into something that she does keep on her resume. So it really depends on whether she stays engaged in those things or she moves direction. But regardless, I would say major kudos, Jenny, to you getting her into a space where she feels naturally curious and is excelling, and look forward to see what she comes up with next.
Absolutely, Jenny. And if you can, please keep us posted. We'd love to hear about her successes. We absolutely would. So I want to be mindful of time. So I think this is a really great place to end tonight's webinar. First and foremost, thank you to our wonderful panelists. Crystal, Jesse, thank you for being so wonderful and providing such value to our audience. And thank you to our wonderful audience for the amazing questions. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get to all of them today, but we encourage you to book a consultation, scan that QR code on your screen, sit down with one of our sit down with one of our counselors, and we'll make sure that you're taken care of and at least get you the answers that you need. Thank you so much, folks. Have a wonderful evening.